When Calls the Heart, Season 8, Episode 4, March 14th. Elizabeth went into the library. Lucas was asleep. She said, "You're up early." He said, "I'm up late." Like he spent the night there. He was doing research on how to save the mine. She said she was there because a new family has moved into the town, and the way she described it is that they're doing a potluck for them. And I guess her contribution is going to be books for the family to read, the kids to catch up. Well, now Elizabeth is treating Lucas like she's been treating Jack. She's acting like she's averting her eyes and scared to talk to him. She was going out the door and he said, "Let me get that for you." She stopped and gave this nervous look, the same look she gives Nathan. He opened the door and she went on out. She went to her horse and Lucas is being helpful again. He's opening the pack so she can put the books in it. Mounties were riding up the street and Lucas looked at him and he said, "What do you think that's about?" And Elizabeth told him that they're doing an investigation on the Mountie killing last year. She said she was under the impression that Nathan had been exonerated, and Lucas says evidently not entirely. She just looked at him and started untying her horse. The new family is moving in. Elizabeth showed up with the books. She introduced herself to Mr. Canfield as the teacher in Hope Valley, and she heard that he has 2 children. She was dropping books off for them. He says his kids are named Coop and Angela. He says Coop loves to read, and Coop is I guess is expected at school. He kept talking about Coop, but she wasn't saying anything about Angela. But we find out when Angela came out, Coop was helping her down the stairs, and the mom was trying to go to her, and the dad held her back. I guess wanting her to do it on her own. We find out she's blind. Elizabeth smiles and looks shocked at the same time. The mom's name is Winifred, but they call her Minnie. Minnie said when Coop sits down long enough, he loves to read. And Elizabeth said, "Well, what about Angela?" And the mother said, "I teach Angela myself." Elizabeth gave Cooper a book, and he said thank you. And then she handed Angela a book, and the mom pushed Angela's hand up so she can get it. And Elizabeth put the book in her hand. Elizabeth was getting ready to say that Angela could come to the school also, but the mom interrupted her and just said thank you. Just ran over Elizabeth's words, said thank you, Mrs. Thornton. Lee and Rosemary met Lee's sister and his niece at the station. Lee said, "We're sorry we weren't here to meet you." His sister said, "It's okay, you're here now, no worries." The niece says she had never been on a train before, and she was excited about it. And her and Rosemary spoke French back and forth, and the sister said that they were only going to be there for 3 days. The Mountie trial is going on, and Bill is in the witness chair. He was asked to describe what went on that day last year. He told them they were traveling on the road when the prisoner's sister showed up with the gun. Nathan was talking her down, and it looks like he was getting ready to resolve the situation peacefully when the other Mountie reached for his gun. The prisoner yelled out, and the sister shot the Mountie. The superintendent Mountie asking the question said, "So you saw her shoot the gun?" And Bill said, "No, the Mountie had my attention when he reached for his gun." The superintendent said, "So you don't know how her rifle came to be discharged? It could have resulted from Constable Grant's actions." "Thank you, Judge Avery." Michael and Jesse were moving some things into the barber shop for Fiona. Jesse said, sure is a lot of fuss over a barber shop. Clara said, Jesse told Mike that he was in the doghouse for over Lee's motorcycle. Mike walked out the door. Clara said, thank you. And she ignored Jesse. And he said, don't I even get a kiss? She went to him, gave him a kiss on the cheek. He said, you're kidding. She said, I love you, and closed the door. And then she laughed on the other side of the door. Lee and Rosemary, his sister said Susanna, and his niece Rosemary, they were getting out the Rachel, his sister, his niece Rachel, were getting out the car. And Rachel says she thinks Hope Valley is romantic, like something out of the Wild West with cowboys and gunslingers. Lee said, we're a little short on gunslingers. And as Lee said that, Jesse walked past them. The niece's eyes followed Jesse across the street. Rosemary saw her watching him and said, oh, that's Jesse. He works for us. Her mom said, eyes forward, please. Lee and Rosemary leaned back and looked at each other from behind Rachel's head. Allie didn't go outside for recess, and Elizabeth asked her what was wrong. Allie said, I'm not in the mood. She was worried about her uncle. Elizabeth told her that her uncle was a very good man and he did everything right. Allie said, they said he did everything right the last time. Elizabeth said, the last time? Allie said, when he got in so much trouble before Clay. Elizabeth said, when were you at Fort Clay? 3 years ago. Uncle Nathan got suspended. After that, he asked for a transfer. That's how we wound up in Fort Simpson before we came here. Elizabeth said, Allie, do you know why your uncle got suspended? All I know is he was a lot more fun before it happened. After Elizabeth got Allie to spill her guts, she made her go on outside to play. Elizabeth was telling Rosemary about Allie telling her that Jack was at Fort Clay at the same time Jack was there. She said, why wouldn't Nathan tell me? He knows Jack died at Fort Clay. Rosemary said perhaps he thought the reminder would be too painful. Still, I can't help but wonder, is there something else he hasn't told me? Of course there's a lot of things he hasn't told you. You're not together. There's a lot of stuff you haven't told him. Jack was telling Bill what happened at Fort Clay. He said he disobeyed orders and went and arrested some cattle rustlers. Bill said Fort Clay was Jack's last station. He said, any chance that you ran into him? And Nathan said, no, I never had the pleasure. Bill said, did you tell Elizabeth that you were at Fort Clay? He said, no. Allie asked Nathan, is he going to have to go to jail? Nathan said, no, Allie, I'm not going to have to go to jail. Whatever happens, I'm going to always be there for you. Today was Cooper Canfield's first day at school. Elizabeth asked him to tell the class something about himself, and he told him he was talking about himself. Then he began to talk about his family, his dad, his mom, and his sister. And while he was doing that, his family was outside the door listening in. And then the mom said, let's go before he sees us. As they were walking away, Angela said that she wanted to be around children her own age. Mom said, we've talked about that already. What else is there to say? But she said that she would think about it. And Angela said, thank you, Mama. Minnie asked her husband to take the piano off the wagon so Angela could play. While they were going into the house, Angela was climbing up on the wagon, and her mom was getting ready to go down there and help her, and her dad held her back and said, let her be. Angela climbed up on the wagon and she started playing the piano, and her parents sat on the porch to listen to her. Molly was in the dress shop and she was being very indecisive, and Rosemary and everybody was telling her the dress she had on was nice. Rosemary and Faith and Rachel were there. Rachel grabbed a long silver necklace and a sash and put them on Molly, and it brought the outfit out. And uh, Molly finally decided to get the dress. Rosemary said, Rachel, if you're going to be in women's fashion, you need to dress the part. Look around the dress shop and you can have anything you want. And Rachel turned around with a big smile on her face. Elizabeth was thanking Jessie for giving her and Coop a ride to the Canfield house. Jessie said, that's okay. I was coming out here to help move the piano anyway. As they were driving up, they heard Angela playing the piano, and Elizabeth was talking about how beautiful it was. When they got off the wagon, they just stood around. The family was on the step. Coop joined them, and Jessie and Elizabeth just stood around listening to Angela play the piano. Minnie told Elizabeth she didn't know how cruel people could be until she had Angela. Elizabeth said, that would not happen in my classroom. I won't allow it. Lee and Suzanne walked into the house, and Lee was wondering, he was calling out for Rosemary, and they weren't there. He was wondering where they were, and then Rosemary opened the door, and she said, dun 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 dun, and Rachel came walking in the door, and she had on that pantsuit that was in the window last week of the dress shop. Suzanne was looking all like this. She didn't approve of it, and she said, where is your dress? And Rosemary said, right here. She took the dress out of Rosemary's hand and put it in Rachel's hand and told her to change and wash your face because she had makeup on. And the girl said, and Rachel said, I thought I looked good. And then she ran up the stairs, and Lee shook his head like, oh my. Suzanne looked at Rosemary, and Rosemary said, your daughter is a natural when it comes to selling women's fashion. She said, Rachel is going to work in our store. Lee said, Susan, I know you're upset, but you can't talk to Rosemary like that. Susan said, of course, take her side. Rosemary said, there's no need to take anybody's side. Lee said, she is my wife. Suzanne said, and I am your sister. Rosemary said, excuse me, I'm going to go for a walk. Rosemary went out the door. Lee looked at his sister, and he left the room. Later on, when Rosemary came back, Susan apologized to her and Lee. Out of left field, Susan asked Lee and Rosemary if Rachel could come live with them. Rosemary said, yes, we'd be delighted. Rosemary said yes before Lee could even get a word in edgewise. All he was able to say is, Rosemary said, if this is something Rachel would like to do, then we would too. And she looked at Lee and said, right? And he said, yes, we'd be delighted. When Susan walked away, Rosemary was looking pleased, and Lee was like, what happened? They were getting ready to come down with the verdict on Nathan's case. The superintendent had a long page of words on the sheet, and as he was getting ready to read it, Allie bust in with Elizabeth following behind her, and she gave a speech about how Nathan was the only thing she had, and wonderful and honest, and all that type of stuff. And she was crying, and the one of the judges kind of nodded to Elizabeth to take her out, and Elizabeth, slowly coaxed her to the door, and they went out. And then they went back to the superintendent and said, what say you? And he didn't read those words on the paper. He just said that he believes no further action should be taken in this matter. The judges said, so say we all, meaning that they agreed with what he said. The judge said this matter is concluded. Nathan shook Bill's hand, and he got up and left out. When he got outside, Elizabeth and Allie were standing in the street, and then Nathan started smiling, and Allie ran to his up in his arms, and jumped in his arms, and they hugged him. And Lucas was looking across the street. Elizabeth was looking at Allie and Nathan, and Lucas walked away. Earlier in the show, Bill was in the saloon and he was arguing with the superintendent about Nathan. Bill got up and left the table. As he was leaving the table, Molly was coming in and she had on her dress and looking really nice. She spoke to Bill and Bill said, "Hey," but he was looking straight ahead and he went on out the door. Molly was disappointed because he didn't notice her in her dress. After Nathan was cleared and Bill was walking across the street and he passed Molly and he said, "Molly, that was some dress." And he walked on by. And Molly told Florence, "That was $23 well spent." Elizabeth walked up to Lucas and said, I thought I'd be the one to take my own advice and be the first to reach out. He says serendipitous, well, however you pronounce it. He said, "I was just trying to find you." Elizabeth apologized to Lucas for not telling him about what his mother told her. She said, "In trying to honor your mother's wishes, I hurt you. And I never meant to do that." He said, "Thank you, but that doesn't give me any right to have spoken to you the way I did. And I shouldn't have questioned or doubted what you know about love. I'm sorry." Elizabeth said, "I don't know if you want anything to do with me or not, but I told Nathan that I can't give him what he wants, that I won't be seeing him anymore." Lucas said, "Well, what can that mean for us?" Elizabeth said, "I guess we'll just have to see." The chef came out and asked Lucas about some ingredients, and Lucas said that he was going to go to the mercantile to see if they have some. And he said, "Excuse me," and he walked away. As he was walking away, Nathan rode up on his horse. Elizabeth said, "I knew they'd reach the right decision." Nathan said, "You had more faith than I had." Elizabeth said, "Nathan, why didn't you tell me that you were based at Fort? Nathan, why didn't you mention to me that you were stationed at Fort Clay?" Allie told me. He said, "I meant to, but so much time passed, I didn't know how." She asked if he'd ever met Jack. He said, "No," and rode away. She asked him when he first got to town, had he ever met Jack, and he told her no then. He never had the pleasure. So even if he was at Fort Clay at the same time Jack was, he had already told her that he never met him. As Nathan rode away, she turned around and watched him leave with the I don't know, it was a strange type of look on her face for somebody who couldn't give him what he wanted and has chosen Lucas. Because that's basically, even though she told Lucas that we'll see, basically she told him, "I choose you." But Elizabeth is so fickle, you just don't know. Thanks for listening. That's all for When Calls the Heart, episode 4, season 8, March 14, 2021.